It's time to talk Montana New Zealand Book Awards and local literary feuds. The latest issue of Landfall features an essay from writer Peter Wells entitled Cheeky Darkies, Homo Bitches and Other Creatures of the Dark Lagoon. It's a comment on humour and political correctness, which Wells wrote after listener, arts and books editor Steve Braunius called him a blathering homo bitch. Braunius said he meant it as a joke, but Wells says it was a conflict of interest because Braunius is a power broker in New Zealand's cultural life. Now, Steve Braunius is an award-winning writer who doesn't suffer fakes and phonies and clearly often likes to tell them so. He's been in the word business for 2 decades and his book section in The Listener is a finalist in tomorrow night's Montana New Zealand Book Awards. Curiously, though, he's no longer Listener Arts and Books editor. He still writes arts profiles and his wildly popular Page 94 column. He's with me now. Now, Steve, you've told me that you haven't actually read the essay, but if we could talk about some of the issues that are raised by it. For example, do you think that there is an element of preciousness in New Zealand, you know, that people get upset about these things?
I don't. Well, yes, there is. I don't know if it applies to this case. I mean, the guy clearly seems to have had his feelings hurt, which is regrettable. You don't want to, you know, make somebody upset, really. But, yeah, there is a preciousness, and I understand you're attending the Montana Book Awards on Monday night. Well, you'll see oodles of that. It's an absolute showpiece of vanity and high seriousness, and it's quite unendurable, but kind of fun around the edges as well.
Well, tell us about the Book Awards.
The Book Awards, well, otherwise known as the Michael King Awards. Michael should be winning, I can't remember the count, about 4 awards, and all thoroughly deserved if he wins all of them, although you can't tell. Every year at the Montana Awards, the judges will do something which will deserve them a sound thrashing.
A drubbing.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd go this far this year with that. I mean, King's book is A, extraordinarily popular, and B, very potent, and C, beautifully written. But
you yourself have said that you think Salmon's book stands a good chance of...
Yeah, well, in terms of sheer pleasure, I actually enjoyed Anne Simon's book a lot more. It was an easier narrative to tell, I suppose, because it was really about Crook and her theory about what led to Crook's death. Personally, I think it was a flawed theory, being a historian of some note, and I don't think she really pressed her case as convincing as she might have. However, yeah, no, that's a terrific book, and the real point of it anyway is that there are 2 particularly really very good books up for award this year, and that's what, mathematically, probably 1 more than usual. So it's a good year, actually, to have 2 books of that magnitude at the awards.
What about the fiction section?
Yeah, well, Peter Wells is up for it, actually. I understand it got a bad review in The Listener. And Morris G, Elizabeth Smither, a couple of other people who are dark horses. I would have put G as the winner by a long neck, although you can't really tell what judges are thinking and what they're saying behind the closed doors.
If I could just go back to Peter Wells for a second, in his essay, and I know you haven't read it, so I'll quickly paraphrase, but he does say in a very sort of non-specific way that possibly you had something to do with the review being negative, or that you gave a suggestion to the reviewer of, you know, this isn't a good book or whatever. In his words, I think he called it, reviews are often accompanied by a demotic Braunius note editorialising about the book itself.
A demotic Braunius note.
What's your, I mean, was that the case?
No. I mean, what had happened with Wells is that, yeah, I'd sent him that email in jest, which obviously fell flat on its face and upset the poor devil terribly. Subsequently, he published his novel, or Random House published his novel, and of course it came out to my office to be sent out for review. I thought, oh Christ, what am I going to do here? Because the guy's hopping mad. Yeah. So I'm not going to give it to Frank Hayden, am I? So I thought, well, I'll give it to Eagleton, or ask Eagleton if he'd like to review it, rather. Eagleton's won the Review of the Year award 4 times. That's much, you know, that's more times, obviously, than anybody's ever won it. So I thought, well, whatever Eagleton is going to say, Wells will probably respect it, because Eagleton is regarded, certainly officially anyway, as the Dean of New Zealand reviewing. And he's a very astute, clever, intelligent reviewer, and, you know, he understands writing a lot, you know. He understands writing a lot, that's beautifully put. He understands writing. So I thought if I give it to Eagleton, that's perfect. And Eagleton said, yeah, that'd be great. So I just whipped him over the book. And the demotic note would probably have been 800 words, April 23.
Is there anything else you tell your reviewers? I mean, what do you ask your reviewers to do?
Well, of course, this is all past tense, as I'm not books editor anymore.
No longer books editor?
Yeah. But it would just be a little with compliment slip. You get them from the listener and you chuck them in there, and I'd write in pencil, 800 words, the word count, the deadline. And occasionally I would add, be honest. That's about it. Sometimes with first-time reviewers, you'd waffle on about, don't explain the plot. I mean, the only person who knows what you're doing when you write is the person who's writing it. I mean, you know, when I put out when Random House put out that book of columns, you know, obviously I read the reviews, you know, when they came out. And, you know, this must be the same for almost every author, unless there's one reviewer which comes along once in a lifetime who is such an astute link to what you're doing that they have told you and given the secret to what you're doing, you know. But most reviews had it hopelessly wrong, and the ones which you remember were not the ones which were flattering and had praise in them, but were the ones which were critical. I enjoyed those.
As the previous arts and books editor for, you know, the listener, aren't you now saying that reviews are kind of pointless because you'll never capture what the writer meant?
No, what you want is honesty from the reviewer. You want absolute honesty. I mean, a book is just one thing, and the person who writes it is one thing. When it goes out to be read, you know, that's an entirely another thing. And how should it be approached, you know? And so you have to have people who are reading it with utter honesty and expressing those views very honestly.
But you still think that those reviewers won't have much chance of really being able to give a good interpretation of what the writer meant or was trying to do?
No, but they won't be able to do that. No, that would be like a magic trick, really. But what they are able to say is whether it's enjoyable.
The arts and books section of the listener has been widely regarded as a leading source of reviewing in the country. Why are you no longer editor?
Oh, things change at magazines.
Was it your choice to go back to doing just the page 94 and the profiles?
No, it wasn't my choice, but things change at magazines. We all move on, have a cup of tea and live happily ever after.
You think you'll be staying with the listener?
Oh, I dare say, yeah. I'm certainly not going to use this interview as a job interview.
What's next for Steve Braunias? Are we going to see another published book of your columns?
Oh, I don't know. That's up to publishers, really. I can't remember when that one came out, about 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. I don't know. What's next? Oh, just more writing, really. I mean,
Is there a novel?
Fiction is very, very, very hard. Yeah, I don't know, really. I mean, you get involved in these sort of feuds and so forth, and you're dealing with writers all the time, or I was dealing with writers all the time. And this kind of thing is an ongoing process. I don't know, it's been of some surprise, I suppose, over the past few years that the thing that I seem to be able to do is still sit in my shed and be able to write without the interruption of these other things.
Steve Braunias, thank you very much.
Good on you.
The Montanas are held tomorrow night in Auckland, and we'll bring you some highlights next week. Gordon Crook is an octogenarian artist whose career began more than half a century ago in London, but he can actually trace his artistic bent right back to the 30s, when as a 10-year-old he would cut up his mother's mail-order catalogues into collage. 70 years later, his works could still be described as collage, but the inspiration for his latest exhibition goes much further back in time, 7,000 years in fact, to the Paleolithic age and the worship of the goddess.
I think what I've tried to show is that the goddess is both male and female. She generates all things in our world and, according to early beliefs, in the cosmos. So she is the creator of all things. So that everything we see, not only in this exhibition, but in our own world, because after all she was the goddess of the world we live in, is a reflection and creation of herself as we are. And in many ways, that's what I've tried to show in the works. That particular image is of the goddess in her death-wielding role, you see. So she's the life giver and the death wielder. Sometimes you see 3 dots on her, and they're very much alike to our conception of the Trinity, but they stand for birth, death, and renewal or resurrection. So the relationship between the ancient goddess and the Virgin Mary is very, very close. I can't really talk about paganism because I'm not a member of it and never was, but I think it's the celebration of life, full stop. That's what it is.
Gordon Crook's work is currently exhibiting at the Idiom Studio in Wellington. Coming up, it's not easy being a soprano.
It's known to be a very difficult opera to produce this. It's sometimes a bit difficult to follow.